The repair is $200. The tenant has water coming through the ceiling. The vendor is ready to respond. And everyone is waiting for one person to say yes.
For $200?
For $200. The manager thinks the owner wants approval. The owner assumes the manager can handle it. The vendor is refreshing an inbox. And the tenant is wondering whether anybody is actually in charge. Short pause. Here's the thing. The repair may be simple. The decision is what's broken.
And when nobody owns the next move, a little leak gets a very expensive personality. You get follow-up calls, duplicate emails, a frustrated vendor, and a tenant who starts measuring service by how often they have to chase somebody.
Welcome! Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, and today's topic is how to stop that bottleneck before it starts. Trina, we're talking about a decision map. Not another software platform, not a giant manual. A simple agreement about who decides, who communicates, and who acts.
Here we go. 3 lanes, and they can fit on one page. The manager-owned lane, the approval-required lane, and the emergency-authorized lane.
Exactly. And the point is not to predict every strange thing a building can do. Buildings are very creative. The point is to agree in advance about the predictable decisions so people can move without holding a meeting every time a garbage disposal makes a suspicious noise.
But the emergency lane
needs a definition before the stressful call comes in. Right. Immediate action does not mean every inconvenient request becomes an emergency. It means the owner and manager have already discussed the conditions where waiting could threaten people, create significant damage, or violate an obligation.
That distinction saves the whole idea from becoming reckless. A dripping faucet is not automatically a burst pipe. A tenant asking for a nicer light fixture is not the same as an exposed electrical hazard. You want confidence, not chaos wearing an emergency badge.
And I want to take a strong position here. If an owner has to approve every small repair, that is not necessarily control. Sometimes it is an operating failure disguised as involvement. The better question is not who is included on the email. It is who owns the next decision.
I like the point, but I can already hear a small property manager saying, "Great, now I have a map, a threshold, and 6 more things to document. How do we keep this from becoming bureaucracy for people managing 5 doors instead of 500?
By making the map smaller than the problem. Start with 3 decisions that have already caused friction, not 30 imaginary scenarios. Write down who can act, who must approve, and who communicates. Then add detail only when a real exception teaches you something.
Yes, review exceptions, not every routine decision. That one rule keeps the map useful.
Let's put some ordinary decisions in the first lane. Routine maintenance, tenant updates, coordinating access, requesting estimates, scheduling an approved vendor. Those can usually be manager-owned when they stay inside the agreed guardrails.
And vendor scheduling? Don't leave that floating in the middle. If the manager chose an approved vendor and the job is authorized, the vendor should hear, "Please come Tuesday between 10 and noon." Not, "We're waiting for someone else to confirm that we already confirmed it."
Exactly. A sample entry might say, routine leak repair under $500. Manager authorizes. Tenant receives an update within 2 hours. Owner sees the cost in the weekly report. That's a decision. That's an owner. That's a communication path.
And 500 is only an example, not a magic number. A $200 repair can be unusual in one building and completely normal in another.
I'm not sure I buy that as the main emphasis. If we attach a question to every dollar amount, people freeze again. A manager needs a clear yes or no, not a philosophy seminar every time the dishwasher makes a strange sound.
Fair pushback, but I'm not asking for a philosophy seminar during the service call. I'm saying the questions belong in the kickoff conversation. Is there a safety concern? Is there a lease issue? Is this recurring? Does the owner want to be called above a certain amount? Decide that once, then let the manager move.
That's fair. Decide the rule once. Use judgment for the exceptions. The second lane is where the cost, risk, or long-term impact crosses that rule. A major replacement, a property improvement, a material change in access, or a project above the approved limit.
And approval required does not mean manager does nothing. The manager gathers the facts, gets the bids, explains the options, and recommends a path. The owner approves the investment. Otherwise, the owner receives a problem with no useful decision support.
Right. Say a water loss repair has reached $4,800. The manager stabilizes the property immediately, confirms the scope, gets 2 bids if it is safe to wait, and escalates to the owner by phone because the amount and damage potential are outside the routine lane.
And the tenant still gets a message, not a vague message, something like, "We have stopped the active leak, a specialist is assessing the damage, and we will update you by 4 o'clock. The decision may belong to the owner, but communication cannot disappear while approval is pending.
That is the part people miss. Communication is not a courtesy added after the real work. Communication is one of the actions on the map.
Now, let's make this uncomfortable. The owner says, "Call me before spending anything." The manager says, "The owner never answers during the day." What happens at 2 p.m. when the vendor's response window closes?
You define the escalation before that moment. Maybe the manager calls, sends a text, and uses the documented emergency contact. Maybe the vendor secures the situation up to a temporary limit. Maybe a non-urgent job pauses until approval. But silence cannot be the policy.
And the response window has to be real. 4 business hours is not useful if the owner is traveling for 3 days and nobody has authority to handle the gap.
Good correction. Put the window in writing. Routine approvals answered by the end of the business day. Urgent non-emergency approvals answered within 2 hours, and true emergencies handled under the emergency agreement. Those times can change. What matters is that everyone knows what happens next.
Here we go. Let's play out 3 calls, because the map only matters if it works when somebody is busy, worried, or holding a wrench.
First call. The tenant says, "Water is coming through the ceiling. I am the manager. I confirm whether the water is active, whether anyone is in danger, and whether utilities need to be shut off. Then I contact the emergency vendor."
And I am the tenant. Do I put a bucket down or do I leave the apartment?
I answer the immediate safety question first. Move away from the affected area. Protect your belongings only if it is safe, and stay available for the vendor. I have called for emergency service, and I will update you within 30 minutes. Then I notify the owner. Action taken, vendor contacted, likely exposure, and the next decision point.
Good. The manager did not wait for a signature, but also did not pretend to know the final cost. That is action with a boundary.
Second call. The tenant says the bedroom is cold and wants a different heating solution. I do not jump straight to a replacement. I ask a few focused questions, check the thermostat and filter, review the maintenance history, and schedule the appropriate inspection.
And if the tenant says, "So when will I get a new system?"
I say we are checking whether this is a maintenance fix or a larger equipment issue. You will hear from us by tomorrow afternoon. I have not promised an upgrade, but I have promised a next update. If the inspection points to a $4,000 replacement, that moves to approval required.
That is where tenants often judge the process. They can accept that a decision takes time if they know who is handling it and when the silence ends.
Third call. The owner wants new exterior lighting and a more impressive entry feature. The manager gathers bids, compares durability and cost, checks whether permits or contract requirements may apply, and explains the likely benefit. But the manager does not tell the vendor to begin until authorization is clear.
Because "please price this" is not the same sentence as "you are authorized to start." Vendors know that difference very well, usually after somebody has learned it the expensive way.
Exactly. A good map separates estimating, recommending, approving, and executing. One person can do more than one of those jobs, but the handoff has to be visible.
And it protects the vendor relationship. A vendor can work quickly when the request is clear. They get frustrated when they are asked to solve a problem, then discover they were never authorized to act.
So what goes on the page? 4 basic columns. The decision, the person who owns it, the person responsible for communication, and the trigger for escalation. Add a spending limit and response window if those help. Keep it readable from across the desk.
I would start the conversation with 3 questions. What do you want handled without calling you? What must you approve personally? And what should never wait for approval? Those answers reveal expectations faster than a long onboarding questionnaire.
Then ask the manager, what information do you need to make a confident decision? Authority without information is a trap. If the manager is expected to act, the manager needs the lease context, vendor contacts, property history, budget information, and a reliable escalation path.
And make the document visible to the people doing the work, not buried in an email from 6 months ago. One page shared with the relevant team is enough for many small operations.
After that, review it monthly or sooner after a meaningful exception. Ask, what surprised us? Which decision bounced between people? Where did a vendor wait? Where did a tenant receive mixed messages? Update the map from real friction, not imaginary complexity.
That monthly review can be 10 minutes. You are not rewriting the whole business. You are fixing the one place where the process made people guess.
One important caution. This is an operations conversation aid, not legal advice. Spending authority, emergency obligations, insurance requirements, leases, contracts, and local rules can change what is appropriate. Verify the formal requirements with qualified legal, insurance, and local professionals before turning your map into a policy. Let's bring it home. 3 lanes, manager owned, approval required, and emergency authorized. Put guardrails around them. Money, response times, documentation, and escalation. Then name the communicator, because an unanswered tenant is still experiencing a decision, even if nobody has made one.
And clarity is not coldness. A tenant can feel cared for because the update is timely. An owner can feel respected because approvals are honored. A vendor can feel valued because authorization is unambiguous. Personal service gets stronger when people are not forced to guess.
Before your next owner or vendor conversation, take 10 minutes. Write down 3 real decisions that have caused delays. Put each one in a lane. Add the spending limit, the response window, and the person who communicates the next step. Then ask, who owns the next move?
And if the answer is, well, everybody does,
You have found the bottleneck. Start there. 1 page, 3 lanes, and 1 honest conversation can save you from having the same conversation every week.
here we go. Download the starter template from the Real Stories and Property Management email list. Fill in 1 decision today and test it on the next repair or approval request. You do not need a perfect system. You need a clear next move.
Join the email list for the printable decision map starter template and use it as a conversation guide, not a rigid rulebook. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening and reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. Until next time.